I'm Mike from Badger Paddles. I'm just going to quickly go through, we're down at the Toronto Boat Show in the Swift Canoe and Kayak booth, as every year we are. It's been a really good show and a really nice spread of Swift canoes and kayaks. And I'm just going to quickly go through my Badger paddle lineup for 2018. Many of the paddles from previous years plus a new one. So just getting right into it. Doing a lot of cherry this year as usual. I'm going to be doing more walnut paddles this year as well. Probably the most versatile sort of all-rounder paddle, the Badger tail, which is a traditional beaver tail paddle. A lot of blade surface area. I know some people think that it looks a little skinny, but there's a long blade here and a lot of volume in this paddle down low where you catch a lot of water. So this paddle really moves a lot of water. It's also really versatile because when you put it, say you're in shallow water and you can only get this much blade in the water. A lot of my other paddles have a really fine, quiet tip. This one's got a little more meat down here, so gives you a little more oomph if you just get a little bit of blade in the water. Because these are handmade paddles, the paddles have varying degrees of flex. So this is a particularly flexy blade on this paddle, which some people like. Really easily flexes. So that's probably one of the more extreme flexes. So if you're ordering a Badger paddle and you want to have some custom flex built into it, that is an option. The other beaver tail paddle is the Bunga. This one's got a custom paint job. Fiona, my wife, and the other part of Badger Paddles has been doing quite a bit of custom paint on our blades and paddles. She tends to duplicate fairly traditional things that you would see in historical pictures of voyageurs. So this is something that a voyageur might have put on their blade to distinguish their paddle. Shorter blade than most of my paddles, the widest of our paddles. So if you're in rivers or if you're doing some moving water. This is a short Bunga, and it's a great boat for if you want to use a pack canoe or where you're sitting in the bottom of the canoe and use a single bladed paddle. One, it's a shortened shaft, but also you don't want too long of a blade. It's a lot of blade to get out of the water when you're in that position. So this is a really good pack boat paddle for sitting in a pack boat. This is about the size a guy like me would use. So that's a 51-inch Bunga. So the most popular paddle has always been the Tripper, which is a traditional beaver tail. The cherry paddles retail for $149. They come with a paddle sock, as they always have. Now, if you want a custom, we do custom graphics and laser engraving. Swift has ordered a bunch of these Maple Leaf editions to go with their Canada Edition canoes. So as an example, this is a paddle with a customization. Rather than being $159, you'd be spending $179. So about 30 bucks more gets you a laser engraved image, which is filled in. The reason this is the most popular, a lot of surface area, good sized blade, a little quieter because it's got a finer tip, a little quieter to put in the water. One of the other features that makes our paddles really smooth in the water is this ridge that goes into most of the paddles, the dihedral ridge, which gives the water a direction to flow around the paddle. It's this first 4, 5, 6 inches of water up top is not really solid water, it's fluid. It moves around the blade of the water. And so this gives it a direction to go and makes it more smooth and fluid to pull through the water, doesn't chatter. The paddle that I do most of my paddling with is the Sliver, which is this guy, really popular. Another variation on an otter tail paddle, a skinnier otter tail than the Tripper is. I like paddling with this paddle because I've done a lot of damage to my shoulders over the years, and it doesn't load my shoulders badly when I take a stroke. So this is the Sliver, really, really quiet and smooth to pull through the water. And the new model, the Feather, is this guy here. Basically, it's a Sliver with a really big, long blade. It's got about 5.5 inches more length in the blade. So this paddle has kind of got a really specific purpose. People that are doing style solo paddling, way back when Ray Kettlewell was building paddles, he used to build a paddle called the Quill. And people had been asking me for something, basically a Sliver with a longer blade. So this blade is 34.5 inches long, really long. It's not a blade you want to be pulling out of the water every time you take a stroke. We call it the Feather because it's, the way you use this paddle is you feather slice the blade through the water and you keep it in the water. So it's great for doing turning strokes and pivoting the canoe and maneuvering the canoe, especially in a heeled over style solo paddling way. One thing we've found is when you go really this long in a blade, you can really put a lot of flex into the blade of the paddle. So this paddle is, quite flexy in the blade. I also anticipate that a lot of people are going to customize this paddle. So, maybe not, a Sliver has a 29.5-inch long blade. This paddle has a 34.5-inch blade. Some people are going to want to trim maybe a couple inches off of this blade, so it gives you room to shorten this paddle up a little if you're a little smaller person. So that's the new paddle for 2018. We've done our popular, colorful kids paddles for a long time, but some kids want to just have a paddle like their mom and dad has, a one piece, something that is really solid. And so here's a young Badger. So we're doing basically, it's got all of the same features and the same construction as a Badger paddle, but it's for kids or youths. And again, adults who want to use this kind of paddle, like if you want to do an underwater recovery stroke in a pack boat or something like that, it's a really good choice for. And also just small adults sometimes gravitate towards something like that. So that's the range of Badger paddles for 2018, and we are also doing more custom paddles. So if you got something really unique, maybe a paddle you used for years or your grandpa's paddle, and you want to duplicate that paddle, that's something we're getting more into this year, so contact us if you're interested in that.